welcome everyone to another biggest event planning mistakes and their solutions. And if you see me looking up here, I'm looking at Instagram. Down here, it's my people on YouTube. Whether you've been thrown into planning or have been planning events all your life, you can always count on something unexpected to happen. It's no matter if it's script, if you have a checklist, it doesn't matter what it is, something happens. And so the intention of the show is to give you little tips and tricks to put in your toolkit. So if something happens, you could just pull one out and have a solution right away. My name is Melody Dixon, and I'm the CEO and founder of Pro Event Planners, curators of eco-focused events. I plan events for people who are steeped in all things sustainability. It's in their life, their home life, their business life, and in their events. And that's how they connect with me, because I am totally aligned with all things sustainability, eco-focused, all the things. And they want to stay on brand with their events as well because it's important. I also work with people who have no idea about sustainability. They're aware that there's some wastage going on and they're not sure what to do. So they reach out and I support them in that respect. So what's sustainability? It is meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. I like to explain it as we are so expansive and creative just by virtue of coming from God that we can't help but want more for ourselves, want better relationships, want to start a business, want to have children, want to create art, want to invent things. By nature, we're expansive people. And so we have resources on the planet that God gifted us so that we can express ourselves that way. But we get to do so intentionally so that for the rest of our lives while we're on earth, we can still be expansive and creative. But our children get to have this access to the same resources, or grandkids and family and friends 10 generations deep will have access to the same resources. Now, there are 3 pillars to sustainability. The first one is the environment. We get to reduce the use of the resources that we're using because we already have excess and we're not using it wisely. We're just wasting. So we get to reduce the use and only use what we need. Reuse what we already have instead of just keep buying more and making more just for the sake of going through the resources. And we also get to recycle. I like to squeeze in a fourth, as you know, upcycling. This is where we take resources or products at the end of their current life cycle in their current form and transform it, transmute it into a whole new thing that can start a whole new life cycle. And the example I like to use is there's a show on HGTV called Flea Market Flip, where they would go to this flea market in New Jersey and buy just the junkiest thing, old boots, old telephone, old wagon wheels, old shelves and filing cabinets, and just transform them into coffee tables and side tables and bed frames and artwork and chairs. So many unique, creative things. And it's like a competition. So they would have a theme, and then they would purchase old things based on the theme and then convert it. Such an interesting show, and it just presents us to the fact that humans are so creative. Like, we have ideas in our minds that can take random things and make beautiful things from it, and we get to keep doing that. So that's all a part of sustainability. We're giving it another life, so it delays its entrance into the landfills. Now, today we're going to unpack another biggest event planning mistake and its solution. And the mistake that we're going to talk about today is to not intentionally feeding our guests. And when I say intentionally, it means there is foresight and planning and thought that goes into the kind of meal that is prepared for your event. oftentimes people will go with the same old. Um, Chicken piccata, baked chicken, penne pasta, the traditional, normal things you see in event spaces in hotels. Boring, boring, boring. They've been around on menus for years, especially chicken piccata. It's delicious, but there's so many other things you can do with chicken. And gosh, if you're eating plant-based or even vegetarian, the go-to they'll have is like a marinara, on some kind of a pasta thing. Just boring. It's just the same old, same old. There's no extra thought. There's nothing that goes along with that. So we're going to not do that anymore. Your attendees are the heart of your event. So as you plan, you need to keep what they eat in mind. The first tip I'm going to share with you is to serve good food. And by good food, I mean just not the same old, same old. Event catering is a critical part of the event experience. Run-of-the-mill catering delivers just lackluster dining, like the foods I mentioned before, just, boring. And it does nothing to please your hungry attendees better than deciding to give them something delicious and visually appealing. It smells great, it looks great, it tastes great. When you do that, it aligns them with your brand even more because you have great location, great decor, great lineup on the program, and you get to top it off with great food. The food must be fresh and look and taste amazing. The end. There's no if, ands, or but about it. Even if you have a low budget, you get to be giving people delicious, healthy, clean, tasty, well-presented food. Number 2, while this does depend on the type of event you have, there's nothing that incurs the wrath of attendees quite like running out of coffee, or worse, not having coffee at all. So my number 2 is must have coffee or tea and a water station, especially if it's a corporate event where there's different speakers. Maybe you'll have a general session with the CEO of the company giving like a state of the address. That's a good 30 minutes of talking. And especially if the staff of the company hasn't have any interaction with the CEO, they probably see him once a year and they're looking at him droning on, reading from a teleprompter, and he's just not engaging. Worse, if after the general session, they go right into the breakout sessions where they have different speakers in different rooms. And not all speakers are alike. There's some who drone on. They have a monotone voice. They're not engaging. They're not doing things with their tone and their pitch. You're not like pulling you in by whispering or exciting you with being loud and engaging on body movements and music and dancing and all the things. You can get bored. You can nod off. And so the coffee will allow people to get up from their seat, walk over to the coffee station, interact with it, get the cup, get the different types of coffee, the different types of creamers and sweeteners, and stir it for a little bit. Maybe different types of herbal teas with the lime and honey and all the things. That movement and that interaction kind of wakes them up a little bit before they go back to listen to, I'm sure, content that they need to hear, but just not being presented in a way that's very attractive. So coffee is a must-have at corporate events. I would even go so far as to say even social events get to have coffee, Because if you're serving alcohol, then at the end of the party, when people are tipsy or maybe getting close, the coffee will help them to get home safely. Coffee, tea, something hot and invigorating, because alcohol is a depressant. So it makes you relax, drowsy, some people, and the coffee and everything will perk you up and get you at least a good 30 minutes or so to get home safely. So coffee all around, everywhere, every event, especially if it's at night and if there's alcohol involved. Number 3, keep the food safe. That's a very big one because people can get sick if your food isn't safe. So let's start off with how it's prepared. And let me share a story with you. One time, quite a few years ago, I did a Kinsey in Miami. And in my proposal for the event, I included a quote from a caterer. And the client was shocked at the price per person. I think it was like 30 something dollars per person, which, if you know good catering, 30 something dollars per person is nothing. And it was chicken and something else, like maybe like a chicken and a fish, a salad. That's it. It's nothing crazy. And it was 30 something dollars per person. But the lady was having a good, I want to say 150 people. And of course, that added up. So she was just not, maybe there was no room in the budget. I don't know what, but she didn't express that the cost was an issue to me, even though I asked. She said she has family and friends who wanted to prepare the food as a gift. I told her I wasn't a fan of that because I don't know the conditions in which the food would be prepared, like from the time the food is prepared to the time that it's dropped off at the venue, what the time frame is. Was the food kept at a safe temperature? Was it prepared well? Was it seasoned well? Was it refrigerated well? Was it delivered well? Don't know any of that. But she was insistent, so I'm like, okay, please sign a food waiver that should something happen to your guests based on the food that your family and friends brought in, that Pro Event Planners was not responsible, because we really didn't have anything to do with the food. So we just pretty much was hired for decoration, photo booth, and photographer. That's all we did. And event staffing and flowers. Yeah. So that was it. She signed the food waiver and everything. And I said, I would like to get a list of the food items that are coming so that I can support you with chafing dishes and maybe signage so that people know what food is coming and no one will be able to eat something that they're allergic to. If somebody is allergic to something with nuts or shellfish, I want to have that visible in front of the dish so they can read it and be aware and, not put themselves at risk. Nothing, no food up until the week of. She's like, I don't know what they're bringing. They're just going to cook something and deliver. But I'm like, you have 150 people. I hope they know to bring enough to serve everybody. Well, let me tell you. So we were done decorating by 5. And I, did pictures and videos, all the things. And we were waiting and waiting. Event was supposed to start at 7. The guests started arriving around 7:30. The client and her people started to arrive around 8, and food came at around 8:30. I'm like, already this is just not good. And they brought a giant fish that smelled very fishy, which if you cook fresh fish, it doesn't smell fishy. Even if it has like an ocean thing, like if you cook cod has a oceany fish-like smell, but this one smelled it looked like a flounder, a big round fish with the spiky fins still on it, was cooked whole. And it just some food came cold, some came hot. Somebody brought soup, but no bowls and spoon. It was just, the food area was a disaster. What my team did, we jumped in and supported as best as we could. But it just goes to show the importance of allowing a professional to handle those elements of the event, because even though it was family and friends, all 150 people, professionally, that area didn't look well. It wasn't executed well. It didn't look well. But the client wanted what she wanted, and she didn't mind. Her family and friends jumped in and they did what they could. It's not how I do my events. So from that point on, I have always said no. I'm not doing that ever again. I will support you as much as I can, but if you go against my professional advice, then it's at your own risk. Here are the details to the tip of keeping food safe. There's a 2-hour rule for keeping food out on a buffet. If you plan your buffet well by getting a tight RSVP, you know that this is a deadline to RSVP. You're going to prepare that amount of food and maybe a good 2% over. Anything more than 2% means you didn't really manage your RSVP too much. That means you're cooking above and beyond. And if the people who didn't RSVP still didn't show up and you have that extra 5-10% of food left over, it's wasting the food. So food starts to break down after a good hour, 2 hours, depending on what it is. So after 2 hours, you discard any perishables left out at room temperature, unless it's kept hot or cold. And that's when you have the chafing dishes and sternos or food warmers. If the buffet is held in a place where the temperature is above 90 degrees, the safe holding time is reduced to 1 hour. Watch the clock with leftovers. The reason why there's a caution there is the food keeps cooking with the heat being constantly applied. And that still degrades the appearance of the food and the quality of the food. And if somebody isn't like adding water to, like if there's a stew and you keep the heat under it, it starts to get a crust on the top and on the bottom. You have to put water in it and stir it up like you're still making the sauce. If not, it's going to start burning. Then there's going to be a smell. There's going to be a smell to that. So you watch the time, watch the leftovers for food kept at a temperature above 90 degrees. If you're planning any corporate event, like a conference, workshop, anything like that, it makes sense to especially monitor that, because they have different sessions. There is a breakfast buffet set out, let's say 7:30, 8 o'clock, and that's out for maybe 45 minutes or so, because at the end of that 45 minutes, people are moving into the general session. Then around 10:30, there's an AM break, depending on the budget of the company. Let's say this company has a good budget. There's an AM break about 10:30, and that's typically like a breakfast bar, some coffee, some tea, some fruit, something light. It's like a little, I don't know, snack to break up the monotony of all the talking that's been going on. Then lunch is at 12. Then there's an afternoon break at maybe 2, 3 o'clock. And 2, 3 o'clock, the afternoon break can look like cookies and chips and soda and water and, of course, coffee. different buffets of things going out. Somebody has to monitor it and make sure that things are kept looking good, tasting good, and is still at the safe temperature. The fourth tip today, I'm squeezing in a fourth, is to donate the leftovers. I've done events where I have donated to Broward Outreach here in South Florida. They're close to Sheridan Street and I think Dixie Highway. You call them ahead of time, maybe an hour before the buffet situation is done, and let them know your organization, where you're located, the kind of food you have, and let them know you have this excess and you want to give it to the homeless people or the people who are staying at their facility. And they would welcome you. You just bring over the food and they accept it. They give you a little letter later on and a thank you note. You know, it's not necessary, but they like to do that to show appreciation. It makes sense to not throw away the food. That's another part of being sustainable. You have all the fresh, delicious, healthy food kept at safe temperatures. At the end of it, it would all go down the drain if you toss the food in the trash at the end of the event. Because at corporate events, nobody really takes home a takeout container. It doesn't look well in the scope of who's attending. You'd see people take out containers more at house parties where they take a to-go plate, but at corporate events they leave the food, and the staff gets to eat when they clear the buffet, but then there's still this excess, and a lot of it, especially uh, crudités or salads, all that stuff. People, not a lot of people are into that, and it just goes in the trash. So donate, donate, donate. Donate leftovers. Now, all of this could be a lot for you to manage. You're busy coordinating your speaker sheets and your keynote speech and working on your guest list, and you don't have time to be managing the food and the menu and working with the caterers and all the things. That's where I come in. In the link to Instagram, the link is in the bio. YouTube, link is in the description of this live. My website, where you can learn more about the service that we provide in that respect. Click on the link to the website. It takes you to the event packages tab. You click on that and you can click on the pro event package. This is my hashtag hire it done package, where we talk about the kind of conference you want to have, how many people you're expecting, the kind of keynotes you want to have, what your budget is, what your return on investment is that you're expecting. We take all those things together and we put it into an actionable plan. And we reach out to the right caterers and all the other right vendors, and we make sure that the buffet is monitored and replenished on time and looks presentable, and the food is safe. Food is labeled, and the excess food that's left after the buffet is done after the 2 hours. It's donated immediately. Somebody takes it over to where it needs to go. Now, it's a lot, so let's connect. My name is Melody Dixon, CEO and founder of Pro Event Planners, curators of eco-focused events. If you have any questions on creating a really good menu for your event, whether it's a social event or a corporate event, I'm your gal. My email address is info@myproeventplanners.com. Thank you so much for joining me today. And tomorrow we will tackle another biggest event planning mistake and their solution. All right. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you